In Venezuela, the fourth cycle of peace talks between the Colombian government and the National Liberation Army is underway. In the U.S., anger grew amongst the Hawaii residents as they outcry the lack of warning and action facing the wildfires that devastated the island of Maui. And the leader of Niger's ruling National Council for the Safeguarding of the Homeland, General Omar Tishani, gave the green light to the start of talks with the Economic Community of West African States. Hello, welcome from the headquarters of teleSUR English in Havana, Cuba. This is From the South, and I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada. And on Monday, the fourth cycle of talks between the National Liberation Army and the Colombian government got underway in Caracas, Venezuela. Both delegations will review the bilateral ceasefire that came into effect on August the 3rd, the longest ceasefire agreed with this insurgent group. Both sides will highlight the progress made so far, especially regarding the ceasefire and the setup of the National Participation Committee. In that regard, the delegations have emphasized that both the initial truce started in June and the ceasefire, including the implementation of its monitoring and verification mechanisms, have led to this resumption of the dialogue. And we have other topics. In Argentina, with more than 97% of the votes counted in the primary, open, simultaneous and mandatory elections were defined the frontrunners of each political party ahead of presidential elections in October 22nd. In the primary elections that will define the candidates that will face each other in the general elections of October 22nd, Sergio Massa won against Juan Grabois, and the coalition accumulated 27.27% of the total votes. Meanwhile, in the opposition alliance, the former minister of Mauricio Macri, Patricia Bullrich, won the internal election and will compete for the presidency of the South American country. Meanwhile, the great surprise was Javier Milei, who obtained the highest proportion of votes in the election with 30.04% of the total votes. The participation in the elections reached 69.62% of the electoral roll. And now we move on to Ecuador, because there the presidential candidates held a presidential debate. Amidst a large police deployment of more than 300 police officers, 7 of the 8 presidential candidates arrived at the headquarters of Ecuador TV. The event began with a minute of silence in honor of the murdered candidate of the Construye movement, the late Fernando Villavicencio. The meeting was developed around 5 central topics, such as security, management of the impact of delinquency and organized crime, economic policies, employment, productive development, and social policy. And also on Sunday, in the context of the presidential debate, the candidate Yacu Perez for the Alliance We Can affirmed that his government will act firm and with combat to the delinquency and that plagues the territory.
I'm the only candidate with a master's degree in criminal law and criminology. I know the etiology of crime. Therefore, in our government, we are going to act with preventive, persuasive, and repressive actions. That is to say, with a firm hand against organized crime, with permanent patrolling by the armed forces and the police, but at the same time also with an extended hand to reach out to teachers and doctors, give them back their education, give them back their jobs, give them back their social policies, because I'm absolutely convinced that without citizen security, there is no work, there is no health, there is no education, there is no protection for the lives of Ecuadorians, which is why it is essential for our government to act intelligently and firmly to build citizen security and recover social peace.
And also in Ecuador, the candidate for the Country Without Fear Alliance, Jan Topic, said that if he is re-elected or elected, he will reinforce security forces in prisons and at border checkpoints.
4,570 Ecuadorians have died this year, more bloodshed than in all the war conflicts in our republic. Ecuador is subdued by fear and hopelessness. That is why I'm counting on you to implement a zero-tolerance policy, to take real control of the 36 prisons in the country, of our borders north and south, so smuggled drugs and weapons never make it to our street ever again. We will lead, equip and train our law enforcement and integrate all our intelligence resources to track the dirty money of drug traffickers.
And in this context, Luisa Gonzalez, the candidate for the Citizen Revolution, affirmed that her future government will work with the construction of a Pacific refinery to make progress in the sale of fuel at low cost.
I will fight the fuel subsidy by having a Pacific refinery and petrochemical project that would allow me to sell gasoline at a low price, so that you, the middle class, transporters, and the productive sector can have fuel at very low cost. We are going to build that refinery. We are going to generate roads, developments for you, scholarships with the money that comes from the sale of those fuels. We are going to move forward, Ecuador.
In the same line, the presidential candidate, Luisa Gomez, stated that she will work on centralized public purchases to guarantee the necessary supplies in pharmacies and hospitals.
First, to remove mafias that have remained in this government since the pandemic, and here there is a vice president. Second, centralize public purchases, not the distribution of public institutions. That's a cope once again, as it did with the Citizen Revolution, and that you felt that when you went to a pharmacy you could find your medicines. We will return to each pharmacy and hospitals their medicines. We will not let anyone die for a prescription. Centralized public purchases made by the government and with the necessary control with the authorities, not placed by distribution.
And also the candidate, Luisa Gonzalez, affirmed that the Citizen Revolution Party and the movement is the most supported one because it is the future and the hope for the nation.
This is the political movement that people support the most. Do you know why? Because it works for you, for the dignity of the Ecuadorian people, for the health and education, and apparently this is what terrifies them, that you will return to have dignified services. They falsely accused us they just dropped the bribery case in Brazil. There was no evidence, so today they declared it false. Today these cases are collapsing, so they have to prosecute by psychic influence. Citizens who are judging us want the Citizen Revolution to return, because this is the future and the hope that will return with Luisa Gonzalez.
Let's take a short break now, but remember you can join us on TikTok when you will find the news in different formats, news updates and more. Welcome back. On Monday in Belgium, pilots of the airline Ryanair started a two-day strike to demand a return to pre-pandemic wages. Dozens of pilots at Charleroi Airport joined a work strike for the third time this summer amid ongoing pay disputes to demand a return to their pre-COVID epidemic pay conditions. In the epidemic context, Ryanair employees accepted pay cuts as part of the efforts to limit job losses. The unions are also protesting against the unilateral reduction of pilots' rest days and allege that the Irish low-cost carrier has breached Belgian labor law. The work stoppage will cause disruptions to passenger flights and is estimated to cancel more than 40 flights each day, representing around 25% of the airline's schedule in Belgium.
During the COVID period, we agreed to reduce our wage by 20% to help the company. The company undertook to restore these salaries afterwards. However, the company didn't want to restore the entire salary and considers that the indexations that have taken place and that are legal in Belgium are valid for restoration. The staff are exasperated. We are faced with an employer who openly says that he will not comply with legislation, an employer who behaves like a mafia, who is telling us to withdraw all the complaints you have made against me or I will increase working hours and not index your wage.
And now we move on to other topics. In the U.S., anger grew amongst the Hawaii residents as they outcried the lack of warning and action facing the wildfires that devastated the island of Maui. Officials have confirmed 96 deaths so far, but the figure is likely to rise as search and rescue tasks continue in Lahaina. Questions are being asked about how prepared authorities were for the catastrophe despite the island's exposure to natural hazards. No emergency sirens sounded, and many Lahaina residents spoke of learning about the blaze from neighbors running down the streets, and many of them rushed to the ocean seeking shelter from the flames. Also, Maui suffered numerous power outages during the crisis, preventing many residents from receiving emergency alerts on their mobile phones. Wednesday's fire in Maui is the deadliest in the United States since 1918, according to the nonprofit research group National Fire Protection Association.
Now, this fire began on the 8th, late on Tuesday, and what the result was this, the destruction of Lahaina. And when I say destruction, having been at ground zero twice, there is very little left there. Now, what does that mean? That means that over 2,700 structures were destroyed in Lahaina, and an estimated value of $5.6 billion has gone away. But mostly there are people are suffering, and we continue to work.
In other topics, rescuers in the Italian town of Bardonecchia on Monday searched for possible missing persons after heavy rains prompted a landslide and a mountain stream burst its banks violently. Fire spokesperson Luca Cari confirmed that rescuers had no reports of missing persons, but were still searching for houses and cars near the area of the landslide. So far, the crews had rescued 6 people overnight from an overturned pickup truck. The town of 3,000 inhabitants is a popular destination in the Italian Alps for winter mountain sports, as well as summer mountaineering. Several streams, torrents, and tributaries, including the Frejus, the Meselet, and the Rochemols, flow through it. And also, Italian authorities reported on Monday that an eruption of Mount Etna volcano caused major disruption to travelers at one of Sicily's busiest airports. The report also said that the operator of Catania Airport canceled at least 45 flights due to the risk posed by the ashfall, and also said that aviation activity could be further affected by delays or cancellations if the volcano continues to erupt. The mayor of Catania, Enrico Trantino, banned the use of motorbikes and bicycles for the next 48 hours because several areas are covered by a layer of volcanic ash that can quickly become slippery on the roads and increase the risk of accidents. At 3,324 meters, Etna is the highest active volcano in Europe and has erupted frequently over the last 500,000 years. We now move on to other topics. South Korea and the United States have announced their upcoming Ulki Freedom Shields, the UFS, joint military exercises, which will begin on August 21 and last until August 31st. The annual exercises are intended to strengthen the combined defense posture and response capabilities of the alliance, as well as promote security and stability in Northeast Asia. In total, some 30 field exercises are planned to be conducted as part of the joint exercises, which will involve military personnel from all states members of the United Nations Command. The exercises are scheduled despite North Korea's repeated accusations against Seoul and Washington of increasing military tensions in the region. We have a second short break coming up, but before, we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English, and there you will be able to rewatch our interviews, the top stories, the special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent event. We have a final short break. Don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. On Monday, the Iranian Interior Minister condemned the silence of countries claiming to defend human rights in the face of the attack in Shiraz, saying it encourages terrorism. After arriving in the southwestern city of Shiraz to address the terrorist attack, Ahmad Bahidi said that the tragic incident was planned by sworn enemies of Iran. He also noted that the holy site also suffered another terrorist attack last year that left 13 dead and wounded dozens more. The official denounced that all international organizations and countries claiming to defend human rights remained silent in the face of that incident, making them complicitors of terrorism. The country's president, Syed Ebrahim Raisi, condemned Sunday's terrorist attack claimed by Daesh at the Shah Shirak shrine. Raisi ordered an immediate investigation into the incident to identify those responsible and prosecute them. So far, at least 10 people have been detained by security forces in Fars province. Also in Iran, a spokesperson for Iran's foreign ministry said on Monday that the judicial process for releasing Iranian-American prisoners has been completed and the swap will take place within a mutually agreed framework. According to Iran officials, the government has moved 5 Iranian Americans from prison to house arrest in exchange for billions of dollars frozen in South Korea, U.S., as part of a tentative deal that follows months of heightened tensions between the two countries. Iranian officials at the United Nations told the Associated Press that the prisoner transfer marked a significant initial step in the implementation of that agreement, which is still being negotiated and could eventually lead to the full release of the Americans. The final transfer of the money and the release of the 5 detainees is expected in the next month.
The government of the Islamic Republic of Iran has received necessary guarantee for the fulfillment of the commitments by the American side, and so the process will go ahead within the agreed framework. The judicial procedure for the prisoners sought by the other party has been completed, and the swap will be done within the framework of the agreement and through a judicial process.
And the leader of Niger's ruling National Council for the Safeguarding of the Homeland, General Omar Tishani, on Monday, gave the green light to the start of talks with the Economic Community of West African States. Tishani's statement came during a meeting with a delegation of religious leaders from Nigeria. Tishani said that Niger's new leadership is optimistic about the start of dialogues with representatives of the 15 West African countries' regional bloc. On July 28th, it was announced that General Omar Tishani, a former commander of the Presidential Guard, was taken over as head of the National Council for the Safeguarding of the Homeland and the functions of transitional president in Niger. Previously, West African leaders evaluated the option of activating a regional standby force to restore constitutional order in that country. In a statement on national television, and despite agreeing to negotiate with ECOWAS through dialogue, the leader of Niger's ruling National Council for the Safeguarding of the Homeland denounced the illegal, inhumane, and humiliating sanctions imposed by ECOWAS.
The transitional authorities of Niger regret this attitude of a certain international community, which consists of showing solidarity with a few politicians of the deposed regime, while at the same time lacking empathy for the people of Niger, who have been hard hit by the illegal, inhuman, and humiliating sanctions imposed by ECOWAS, which goes so far as to deprive the country of pharmaceutical products, basic foodstuffs, and electricity supplies.
We have more on the matter. In an announcement hours after the junta said it was open to talk with ECOWAS, Niger's mutinous soldiers and forces said they will prosecute the former president Mohamed Bazoum for high treason and the undermining the state security.
In any case, the Nigerian government has so far gathered necessary evidence to prosecute the deposed president and his local and foreign accomplices before the competent national and international bodies for high treason and undermining Niger's internal and external security following his exchange with nationals, foreign heads of state, and heads of international organizations.
And like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.